Hello, and welcome everyone to ThursdAI for July 24, 2025. I want to welcome our friends here to the stage. Welcome Nistan, Jan Pelag, Wolf from Raven Wolf, and we're going to have LDJ as well. How are you guys? What's going on? Excited? It's been a big week.
Definitely. What a week. It's almost Christmas and summer.
Open source Christmas, and the Christmas has been giving since Kimi, and now we have a few more models to talk about. Very excited to talk about this here with you guys as well. So let me introduce to the show and to the stage Jan Pelag. Jan, welcome as well. What's going on?
Hi, how are you doing?
You're back in your
Great week.
You found a safe place now for you and your Hebrew model.
Working on it.
And we have Nistan as well. Fresh haircut. Nistan, what's up?
Hey everybody. It's been interesting week.
Yeah, interesting week. And it looks like the whole gang is here together because LDJ also stepped in. LDJ, welcome with upgraded connection, we hope.
Yep.
Alrighty, awesome. All right, folks. So I think it's been one hell of a week for all of us. And the highlights, I believe we're going to have some breaking news. I feel like it's in the air. This week has been a very, very big one for open source. We saw, I believe, week after week, multiple models beat each other. We also saw, and we're going to discuss this at length with Joseph, the WhiteHouse we need to win AI kind of act and action plan. We're going to mention that as well. And yeah, open source has been big this week. I think it's time to just dive in because we're going to have a very big show. We'll just run through all the updates for you. If you're new to the show, if you're tuning in, we're here every week to kind of make sure that you know what's going on. Honestly, it's a service for us as well. It really helps me being the host of the show because I kind of have to keep up with the AI, and I wanted to anyway. So now it's part of what I do. And I believe a couple of times that we mentioned stuff, the other folks on the panel was like, oh, really? This happened. So it's really a service for us as well. It's really fun to just be here. But also we're here to keep you guys up to date for everything that happened in the world of AI. We may have a surprise guest from a certain big lab that did some releases this week. The link was sent, the invitation was sent as well. Besides this, we're going to have another guest, Joseph Nelson from Roboflow, who is, I think, has been to Washington while the AI Act was released. And so he's going to chat with us about this fairly momentous change in policy and update from the US government about AI, about open source, etc. We're going to chat about this. We also have, I think, multiple open source stuff to chat about, and we will definitely have to talk about the IMO Gold that multiple companies has won, and a little bit of a drama over there as well. All right, folks, I think it's time for us to do the TLDR. TLDR is the corner where we just kind of run through everything that happened before we dive into this, because obviously with so many things happening at once, we're not able to talk about all of it. With this, though, the thing I used to do and I like doing is just going around the co-host panel, just asking the one thing that stood out for you this week. It could be the same for all of us. It sometimes is, but yeah, let's start with Wolfram, then Nistan, LDJ, and then Yam. Wolfram, what was the one thing that we absolutely must talk about?
The Qwen models, of course. It's not one, it's two. And it's definitely, yeah. In my test, it was the best open source SOTA model ever, actually.
Yeah. It's actually 3 because they just released a dedicated translation model that I thought you'd love as well. So literally just released a second before we started the show. I think there may be more stuff coming. Nistan, what about you?
New text-to-speech model, and I forgot what it was, but it sounded very good.
Higgs audio?
Yeah, I think so. The 6B, yeah, that one. I feel like that's, besides Qwen, that's the one where you can actually finally generate an open source LM notebook, like an open source dialogue about it, reading stuff. Because that's what I feel like a lot of the AI field is missing, is we're missing something that can just read news to you with multiple voices. If it can do that, then it's a lot better. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All righty, thanks, Nistan. And LDJ, what about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Wolfram that I think the Qwen models seem like the most significant lately, especially since we had the Kimi K2 model that was around 1 trillion parameters total. And so you need a lot of VRAM to store that. But this new Qwen model, I think it's around 480 billion. So it's a little bit less than half the size of Kimi's total size. yet it seems to be comparing comparatively, but if not even better in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exciting. And then of course their coding specific model, it seems like it's really fighting with the top non-reasoning coding models. I think it's not beating the reasoners though, right? Wolfram?
Very, very close to reasoners.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna get to Wolfram. We did some evals on both of these models. We're gonna get to them as well.
Everyone is world class in math now.
Yeah.
A problem that hasn't been broken for years, decade. Everyone is talking about computers being all of a sudden the same week. Everyone gets gold medal, world class. It's interesting, and also, if we have time, I don't know, I can say a few words about OpenAI's agent. Last time we saw it, but I played a lot with it this week, and it's absolutely great. And I think there is a lot to talk about it.
For folks who weren't with us on the live stream last week, OpenAI released ChatGPT agent on last week's stream, July 17th. We were expecting the open source model from OpenAI, and they're like, no, we're going to give you a Deep Research Plus operator, which is the ChatGPT agent. And I've also played with this. We'll definitely have a corner because they released it on stream. We didn't get it until like, I don't know, a day later. So we definitely would like to chat about this, to tell you guys how to use this, etc., and what our feelings about this. I think this covers the beginning of the show, folks. Let's jump into TLDR, and then we'll hurry into the actual content of the show. Let's do it. This is the TLDR. This is the corner in ThursdAI where we talk about everything that happened this week, super quick, in order to kind of keep you up to date if you don't have the 2 hours to spend with us. So today's host and guest, my name is Alex Volkov. As I said, I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases from CoreWeave, and we're going to mention a few things from Weights and Biases CoreWeave on stream with me, co-host Wolfram Ravenwolf, Jan Peleg, Nisten Tahira, and LDJ. And we'll have possibly one guest confirmed, Joseph Nelson from Roboflow, and potentially another guest we'll mention if they are able to come. We'll dive in straight into the open source. This week, open source corner is going to be very hot because, well, let's start with the small potatoes. Not maybe super small. Sapient Intelligence, a company that I haven't heard of before, released something called hierarchical reasoning model. And it's quite something. It's a reasoning model without pre-training. Running on 2 GPUs can get very significant results. We're going to dive into this. We also have our friends from News Research for the second week in a row releasing dataset. This one is Hermes Reasoning Tool Use dataset with 51 tool calling examples, which is very, very impressive. But then the big potatoes in open source this week. Our friends from Alibaba Qwen went on an absolute tear with 2 models back to back, just incredible models. First, they released a Qwen 3 update. They said a small update, though the small update is significant if you just look at the comparison pictures. This is their 235 billion MOE model with 22 billion active parameters. They called it 2507. I think the full name is really something. It's Qwen 3 235B, A22B, Instruct 2507. But basically, we're just going to short call it 2507. This model is very, very impressive. This is a non-reasoning model. They removed reasoning from it, and yet it performs incredibly. So we're going to dive deep into how and why, and hopefully invite folks from Alibaba Qwen as well. They have rumored that they're going to drop something, and then they dropped Qwen 3 Coder. It's a 480 billion behemoth of a coding model, specific coding model with 35 billion active parameters. It's also an MOE, Instruct Focus model. They trained it with 7.5 trillion specific tokens, 70% code ratio, 70% code in the tokens. And this model is quite incredible across multiple benchmarks of coding benchmarks. It achieves, and like it beats QwenMass on SWE-bench verified. It's the state-of-the-art model now for coding as far as we consider it. And I'm very, very proud to say that in this week's Buzz, we have day 0, or you could say day 1 support for both these models. So we launched these models on our infant service. And if you're interested in this, stick around for a chance to get up to $50 in credits, which I now can do, which is incredible. So this is going to be an open source. Qwen also dropped a smallish model focused on translation just before we started the stream.
And there's also the Nemotron models I sent you a link to.
Awesome, yeah. Nemotron from NVIDIA, the reasoning ones, right? They have an update there? Yep, we'll add this to the links as well. We'll move to big companies and APIs and LLMs and generally like the world of AI for big companies. We'll have a friend of the show, Joseph, to join us to talk about America's AI Action Plan, the new AI race strategy that dropped from the White House and dropped yesterday. As we know, some of the latest changes in administration also brought with them some folks focused on AI. He talks about deregulation, talks about multiple things. Generally, I think very positive in the way we think about the world. And we're going to dive in and tell you some details from this action plan. Then we also have, as Jan Peleg mentioned at the beginning, almost all of the big companies, OpenAI and Google DeepMind, both win IMO Gold, International Math Olympiad Gold, for the first time since ever. ByteDance Seed Prover takes silver on the same competition. There was some drama about who released what when, but generally it's quite incredible that those reasoning models were able to take gold. Very impressive result. And also there's a mixed reaction from some mathematicians, folks who maybe didn't pay attention to the AI world until now, started noticing that, hey, this is now coming for them as well. We also have some updates from Google earnings call that happened this week, and they gave some updates about some numbers about their AI usage. It's quite incredible. And I think we'll get to a corner, both me and Yam are excited, other folks as well, about a week with ChatGPT Agent. So ChatGPT Agent was released literally last week on the show. We live watched it together with you guys, but then we didn't have access to it for a bit. And now we did have access to it. We played with ChatGPT Agent, and there's multiple things that we will talk about how agents behaving in the new world. Of course, we had agents before. This is kind of an iteration of Operator, and we're going to chat about this. As I mentioned before, in this week's Buzz, the corner where I cover whatever happened in the world of this show's sponsor, Weights and Biases by CoreWeave. A lot has happened this week. Yours truly was involved deeply into some of these things as I become somewhat of a router for which models we should productize. I was part of the release of Day Zero support of WMB inference for both the Qwen models. We launched both of them on our inference. I think we were like the second maybe to launch the Coder model in full precision, which is very, very, very awesome. And some folks here on stage have had a chat to already play with this. Nistan, I think, will be able to show a little bit of a demo for you guys to how to use this with your favorite coding tools. I will also mention how to potentially get a little bit of inference credits from us that we're doing a little bit of a not a raffle. Moving forward, I found this like two very cool things happening in the world of like research. Subliminal learning for LLMs. It's very, very interesting. That phenomenon where large language models pass behavioral traits to other models via seemingly innocuous data. I will say again, they pass up preferences and traits via just like a series of numbers. And also there's a new paper from Apple. Multi-token prediction speeds up LLMs 5 times. Apple released like a thing that like supposedly speeds up LLM inference by 5, which is quite crazy. It's kind of like speculative decoding to an extent, but not necessarily. In voice and audio, we must absolutely mention a new text-to-speech model from Boson AI called Higgs Audio V2, and it sounds quite impressive. We're going to play a sample here. Definitely a great release in the world of CTS. As you guys know, we track and love this field. And also in AI art and diffusion, a new company came out, AI. I think they had been around for a while, and now they released something called Mirage LSD. They call it the first real-time live stream diffusion AI model. And hopefully we'll be able to show you how this looks based on all of us together. It's a live stream diffusion in 24 FPS. It's quite something. In tools, we have the Qwen folks not only released models, they also released Qwen Coder, which is a clone of the Gemini Coder, which includes Qwen tools. And it's basically kind of like a Claude Code competitor, we would say. It's like a CLI to run their models. This is in tools. I believe there's some more other tools as well. This is it for this week, folks. Let's go to open source. Open source AI, let's get it started. Alrighty, folks, it looks like we have another small thing coming in, as almost as a breaking news. Magistral Small from Mistral has released. Thank you for folks in the comments. Magistral is the reasoning model from Mistral. Yes. Yeah. So it looks like they released Magistral before, but now it looks like they released it on Hugging Face. So we're going to add this. Don't have too many comments though, but we'll definitely add this to the release. Let's start with like the smaller potatoes, although I don't know how small this is. I want to talk about Sapient Intelligence for a bit. Sapient Intelligence is a company relatively unknown to me. They released this new concept called hierarchical reasoning model. I don't know if this is marketing or not. They say like introduce a brain-inspired recurrent architecture for reasoning. Two couple models, a high-level planner and a low-level computational model. 27 million parameter model, execute 27 million parameters. We're talking like, we have models in the trillions now, like definitely hundreds of billions of parameters. 27 million parameters, nothing. Just 1K example without pre-training or chain of thought data. They solve expert level Sudoku puzzles, optimal paths in large mazes. 27 million parameters. LDJ, do you want to like give us a sense of how small that is?
I mean, LLMs itself means large language model, but even the very lower end of that you could fit on a phone is around 1 billion parameters. So, like 1 billion to 27 million, like that's more than 10x smaller than even that. And I mean, like if you had even the largest GPT-2 model, that was 1.5 billion parameters. I'm not even sure if the smallest GPT-2 was as small as this. But I think it is worth noting, from what I remember when looking at this paper, they did train on ArcAGI training examples.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's part of like when they say they trained on like 1,000 examples, that's part of that. But maybe they did do ablations, but I wish to see like ablations on them doing that exact training and that exact data on regular models and then comparing that way. Because I'm not sure if they did that. Either way, this seems interesting, and like everybody's wondering, what do these techniques end up as when you actually scale them up, right? That's the biggest question.
Specifically here, we have, they're focusing this model's release on ArcAGI. ArcAGI obviously is the kind of very interesting set of problems that were built to trick language models but be very, very easy for humans. We should probably mention ArcAGI 3, the game also were announced like last week. They are showing with this model, with the 27 million parameters, they trained on ArcAGI without chain of thought reasoning. So without pre-training on reasoning, without pre-training on like, hey, think step by step, they're getting around 40% on ArcAGI 1, which is higher than O3 mini high. I find that quite insane. Like this probably is a dedicated model though, right? So it's a very specific thing for this, like 960 training examples on ArcAGI, but still, it's quite impressive. They also solve Sudoku Extreme, and am I reading this right, LDJ? Like the none of the other models is able to even solve like one?
Yeah, that's, well, in terms of those 9x9 examples, that's what it seems to be saying. But it is interesting. I know for at least ArcAGI, for sure, there have been attempts in the past where people tried to make specific models where they even generate like tens of thousands of synthetic examples of ArcAGI puzzles, and even training on that still doesn't get them to the SOTA scores. So at least for ArcAGI here, that's impressive to me, even though they trained on synthetic examples.
And so I think main highlights here is that this is a very tiny model that is showing impressive results on very specific domains like ArcAGI, solving a maze, and Sudoku Extreme, 9x9 tiles, and then also maze hard, 30x30. And they show like 74% on this maze compared to O3 mini high and Claude 3.7 and DeepSeek R1. All of them are getting zeros. I don't remember the last time that I saw an eval comparison quite as this, where one model, specifically with 27 million parameters, like nothing, runs on basically a toaster. Like this, you don't need a GPU for 27 million parameters. It can run just basically CPUs, but with frontier models are getting zeros on a task. I've never seen frontier models getting zeros on a task. Well, I've seen some, but they get very obsoleted very quickly. So very interesting from Sapient Intelligence. We may get the folks from Sapient to come and talk to us, but with the no pre-training is very interesting here. All right, so moving on, because we have a bunch of stuff to discuss. We want to mention super quick shout out to our friends from News Research. Interstellar Ninja released the Hermes Reasoning Tool Use dataset. As we all know, some of these models are agentic, and the way they are operating is they call different tools for you as a developer. You specify different tools. This has 51,000 tool calling examples. So examples of like, hey, here's the kind of the function calling, the description, here's the text that would like invoke this, and here's how a response would look. So this is a great data set to probably run our L on. I'm assuming like huge data set, and then include tool use in JSON mode and reasoning as well, and RL for reinforcement learning. Anything you guys want to mention about this before I move on? Besides the fact that we always celebrate data sets? Go ahead, Lindsay.
Yeah.
No, you can mention this if it's relevant, I think, before I move on. It's fine.
So there was a prior paper by someone named Albert Gu, who also worked on Mamba. And he also made something, I think it was called Compress Arc, where it was really interesting. Without any pre-training or anything, they were able to get some somewhat impressive scores in ArcAGI as well. And that is just basically spending a ton of test time compute and just basically training like while doing inference. And it didn't even use any post-training at all. Like, didn't train on any examples of any kind at all. Just only doing training at inference. So maybe that's something worth looking at for some people.
Alrighty, thank you for that. And folks, I think it's time for us to move to the huge releases this week, which I'm very, very excited to talk through. Our friends from Alibaba Qwen, which we will try and get on the show, have released. First of all, let's talk about the small update. I think Junyang Lin, our friend, just decided to say, hey, this is a small update. 235 billion mixture of experts, A22, active 22 billion parameter. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers here without like showing anything, but this is the full name of this model. Qwen 3, 230B, 235B, A22B. Basically, this notation for folks who are listening and are not following everything basically says the whole model, the mixture of experts model, is 235 billion parameters, but then they only operate with like 22 billion active, which means how many experts are loaded in memory. So they already had this model a while ago. We talked to you about Qwen 3 6 months ago. I'm having a hard time to remember. Maybe folks can correct me, but like right around probably less than 6 months. So. And now this is not even a version update. It's not like 3.1, but this model absolutely slaps on benchmarks. It looks like a way bigger upgrade than we were expecting. Wolfram, you had a chance to test out this model?
Yeah, I tested it and I've been using it a lot actually now. Since the release of Kimi, I've been using that in parallel to the big models, and now I've also been using the Qwen models. And it's really excellent. And in my MMU Pro benchmark, it got the top score of all the open weights models. So it's really the best, this model. Yeah, I'm amazed. And it's really, really close now. So imagine if they add the thinking to it back, which was removed in this version. So if they give you a thinking model, that would get even more intelligent. So we would really encroach on the area where only the proprietary models have been this far.
Let's talk about some evals, Nistan, if you will.
I tested both this and the coding model on the medical benchmarks, and I was telling a bunch of doctors that are in tech because they wanted to know. The new 235B, that has now the highest scoring medical benchmark on MedMCQA. It's higher than DeepSeek, higher than stuff. That scored a 0.75. And I tested it in FP8. That's like the highest medical model there is right now. And the coder was not far behind it at all. I first tested the coder, but we'll get to that one.
Yeah, we'll get to the coder. So medical QA highest score by far that you've tested. MMLU Pro, Wolfram, you also said like this is the highest that you've tested on open source models. Very, very impressive. Wolfram,
And it was FP8 also.
FP8 also as well. We should test this on FP16 at the full precision, and I will tell you how you can do this in a second. But also, just the main release benchmarks are very impressive, folks. We've seen this before with like new Sonnet, if you remember. They released a version and then they released like the same kind of version update without mentioning a version upgrade. So this is not 3.1. I don't know what they're waiting for. Honestly, it would have been easier for me to differentiate between the two models and Qwen 3.1 235B. But fine, they didn't want to upgrade the version. Here we are. And we see a huge jump in GPQA from 62.9 on the previous Qwen to 77.5 in this one. Now, as you mentioned, we should mention this outright, and very interesting to talk about. The previous Qwen 3 was a hybrid thinking model. We got very excited back then because they were one of the first hybrid thinking models. What does this mean? This means they trained this model to do chain of thought reasoning via reinforcement learning like everybody else, like O3, like other ones. This was a unique one. LDJ, you remember, right? Like you could have mentioned thinking on and off during the inference. Like you could send some tokens, how the model kind of processes, it would start to think. The folks at Qwen mentioned on this thread that we've listened, I'm quoting them, after talking with the community and thinking it through, we decided to stop using hybrid thinking mode. Instead, we'll train instruct and thinking models separately so we can get the best quality possible. That's very surprisingly interesting, because back 6 months ago, when OpenAI released the kind of like plan going forward, they said we're going to combine models into one hybrid model. We saw this trend after they announced from Qwen in open source. We saw this trend from Anthropic. The new sonnets and opuses are also hybrid reasoning. You can define how much. Gemini as well. You can provide a thinking budget, right? So we saw this trend like from everywhere. And now we see folks of Qwen, they were one of the first ones to say, hey, we're going to do a hybrid. They're pulling back and they're saying, nope, actually, we're going to release a non-reasoning model for you. Now, the thing that I want to mention, for folks who are listening to us and know Maziar Panahi, one of our friends, one of the goats of open source, when he attended the open source symposium from OpenAI before the release model, he specifically mentioned that the feedback from the open source community, from the fine-tuners was, hey, OpenAI, give us access to not only reasoning models, give us access to non-reasoning models as well. If you can't do hybrid, so we can turn it off. The folks in open source wanted to turn off reasoning. And it looks like the folks in Qwen also kind of got that feedback. I would like to pose a question here for the audience. Why do you think that is? And we'll also talk about the technical stuff about this model. But I think this is one of the most interesting things, because even without reasoning, it gets incredible results. It gets the absolute state-of-the-art 79.2 in Arena Hard compared to Cloud Opus non-thinking and DeepSeek. It gets 70% of BFCL, which is the function calling leaderboard benchmark from Berkeley. It gets 51% on LiveCode bench compared to its previous 32. All of this with not reasoning. LDJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I think part of this might be because of the fact that it's being released open sourced, then people end up wanting to use the model for things like continue post-training it on their own data sets and own distributions of data. And I think when you do that from a model that's maybe already post-trained or especially already heavily RL'd and through this reasoning process, then it ends up as something where it can be sometimes harder to train it on your own specific post-training data that you want it to kind of learn very well. And so I think for that reason, a lot of people want the base models to be released, but also something kind of in the middle of that base model and the reasoning, which would just be the regular instruct version.
Yeah. Wolfram, you tested this non-reasoning model on MMLU Pro, which is like a very interesting approach. We'll also see them post MMLU Pro scores here as well. And they compared themselves to Cloud Opus, which is a huge model. And definitely, they say with not reasoning, but they get 81 on MMLU Pro, 90 on MMLU Redux with non-reasoning. I think it's a very interesting approach. The one thing I mentioned before I'll let you go is that I've seen somewhere, maybe you've seen this as well, that these models output a lot of tokens compared to non-reasoning models. Could be the reason why.
Yeah, so they have more intelligence per token or something like that. And yeah, the score is a bit lower than mine because I was only doing the computer science benchmark part for time reasons. So yeah, but it is amazing. And personally, I would have liked to be able to toggle the reasoning mode. I definitely want reasoning for the tough questions where you need the highest intelligence. But actually, I like GPT-4o is still my main model, and I only use O3 when I know it's a more difficult question, so you have to think about it. Why would you want to wait for an answer if you know it isn't so difficult that the model has to think a lot? And the tokens it creates, all of that is also relevant. Not everything is PhD level.
Definitely not everything we need is a PhD level. I think we may have a chance to ask the folks themselves as Junyang is tuning in. I think he said he may be able to do only voice and not hop on video. Junyang, welcome to join.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there is.
I'm in the car, so I can just only use audio.
It's all good. We can hear you loud and clear. Folks, we have Junyang Lin from Alibaba Qwen, the team that ships and ships and ships and doesn't sleep. I saw you, and I was looking at the local time for you when you were doing some socials. It was like 5 a.m. I was like, dude does not sleep.
It was a bit late, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
There are some problems happening before our release, so we will stay very late.
So first of all, congratulations on yet another release. You guys just released the Qwen translator models, Qwen 3 MT. But before we get there, we still haven't even talked about Coder, and hopefully you have around 5-10 minutes with us. We want to chat with you about the upgraded A22B. We have a few questions. We're talking about your guys' decision to listen to your community and remove the kind of the reasoning, the hybrid, and release a non-reasoning model specifically. And yet this non-reasoning model, compared to other big models without the reasoning, is beating them significantly on multiple things, including reasoning. Could you speak a little bit about the feedback from the community you got and kind of this decision on remove the hybrid?
Yeah, it's a hard choice. When we just released Qwen 3, we were proud of our hybrid model. But after a period of time, we got a lot of feedback of bad responses from our models. They just said that the thinking model and the non-thinking model have some conflicts, and sometimes they feel that the model did not achieve its best performance. So I sent a vote in X to see whether our models can perform better. I can have hybrid, I can separate, it's okay. But a lot of developers or our customers, in Alibaba Cloud just said, wow, I would like a good non-thinking model. Your hybrid thinking model has a lot of faults. Well, it does not perform in some tasks, even worse than Qwen 2.5 or something like that. So we made a hard choice to see that whether we can achieve the best performance with our efforts in non-reasoning and reasoning models. And as to the performance, we actually still would like the model to be very automatic in thinking and non-thinking. For example, you actually would not like to have two models. You would like to have a hybrid model, but our hybrid model asks the users to see that whether you just turn on thinking and turn off thinking, but maybe the best way is to let the model to think while it is necessary. We just build this non-reasoning model. If you ask really hard questions, it will just like doing chain of thought.
It will just do chain of thought.
So answer the question. But if you ask it simple, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's all good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you ask them very, very simple questions, it gives you the direct answers. So this is a good non-reasoning model. And we have fixed a lot of problems like knowledge and retrieval, things like that. So the general performance will become much better than the previous Qwen 3 235 billion.
My next question. Let me jump in here super quick just to give you like maybe a little pause. The naming. When I talk to people inside, when we need to put up this model, I have to tell them like the whole string, like Qwen 3, 265, etc. Blah, 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 A22, 27, 2507. First of all, 2507 didn't come yet. So were you guys supposed to release this like tomorrow? But also the next thing is
a year. It's a year.
It's
month.
a year. I thought it was like a day and a month. But also the question is, why not like Qwen 3.1, for example? Did you guys not think that this jump in capabilities is like strong enough to get like a new mini version?
Yeah, I had a lot of hesitations about the naming, and we talked internally quite a lot, and we had a lot of arguing. But the problem is, if you have 3.1, so where is 2.1? Where is 1.1?
Ah, that's true.
And then when you have 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and then you just jump to 4, well, it is something like a little bit strange, just like Claude 3.5 and then 3.6, 3.7. So we decided to follow DeepSeek. DeepSeek's naming is actually clear. It is using 0324 or 0528, things like that. But I think that we might not release two versions in 1 month. So I can just use year and month. So I just use 2507. Yeah.
It shows how out of the loop I am with the naming. I was sure that this is a date and month. And I was like, what is going to happen on the 25th of July?
No, this is just year.
Okay, so you're not going to release two models in 1 month. At least that's what we see. Okay, folks, any questions to Junyang before we talk about the Coder model, which I'm very, very excited to talk about? Any questions about the A22, the update, the thoughts there?
I don't have a question. I'm amazed. It's such an amazing model, and finally, yeah, I'm happy that Qwen has become my main model again after a while. So, well done, big kudos.
Yeah, thanks for the appreciation.
Yeah, send huge kudos from us to the team about this like incredible release. The competition is cutthroat. Junyang, like just a week before you guys, Kimi was released, and that was beating the previous SWE-bench verified kind of open source model, and you guys beat that even still. I think 62 or something. I also wanted to highlight that you guys released results on SWE-bench verified specifically with the harness from OpenHands. Obviously, you were involved, so you guys know the OpenHands folks as well. I wanted to call out kind of that approach as well of how do you guys approach which evaluations, which benchmarks you guys are releasing. Anything else you want to mention about the 22 before we move on to the coder, Junyang?
I would like to see the audience feedback about our models. This time we are more confident, but there might be some problems we need to fix. Just let us know.
Yeah. So
I could add one thing because I noticed that the German isn't as good as I'm used from 4.0, for example. But the same thing happened with Grok 4. So the smart models that are doing very well in the benchmark, at least in German, I noticed some issues there. So despite, of course, you are probably using better data by now.
Yeah, maybe in the next version, because for multilingual performance, we need to improve our pre-training. This time we just do slight improvement in our pre-training, but for multilingual performance, we might need to invest more data, like German data, into our pre-training. Maybe next version.
Was 2507, was this a new pre-train or was this continued older one?
It's just continuous pre-training. We just train the annealing stage of the pre-training to make it better, and then we change the whole recipe of our post-training.
Alrighty, folks. I think we do want to continue because this is the first thing that you released. And then you guys surprised everyone with the upgraded release. So let's mention this. So folks, Junyang, maybe you want to talk about the release yourself. So you announced this. I have it up on the screen, but feel free to talk about the Qwen 3 coder and what is interesting about this release.
I think a lot of people are interested in Qwen 3 coder. We have been building Qwen 3 coder for months, and these guys are doing a great effort in building this coding-specific models, because we think that if we would like to merge it into our large language model, it is still a bit hard for us to achieve the best performance. So we would like to build a specialized coding models. Just like we said in our blog, we had a lot of data, coding-specific data, merge our general text data into the coding pre-training. But this time, we have improved quite a lot in our post-training for coding, including we have covered a lot of tasks. And this time we have done reinforcement learning for coding performance. So you will find that it is generalizable to a lot of coding tasks. And specifically, we focus on coding agents. So you will find that our performance in SWE-bench is actually good. And we would like to test it in an open way. So you can use OpenHands to reproduce our results. And the performance is generally good. I think for SWE-bench performance is competitive with Cloud Sonnet 3.7 or 4, but we still need some feedback about coding performance to be whether it is really, really competitive with Cloud Sonnet 4. I think it is a little bit below, but the gap might not be that far. We might have some gaps in some tasks that we might not notice, but in general performance, we're confident in the Qwen 3 coder. And if you check OpenRouter, you will find that the use of tokens are increasing drastically for Qwen 3 coder.
I want to get to that. I want to show this on stage. The graph is absolutely insane on OpenRouter. I saw you repost this. I want to give some technical details about the model first, and then we can chat about them. So first of all, just size-wise, this is Qwen 3 coder, 480 billion parameters, a mixture of experts, with 35 active billion parameters. It's an instruct model. I don't know if you guys released the base one or not, but this is an instruct model, great for coding. It's a mixture of experts with 256 token context, extendable to 1 million. Junyang, is this right that on your API, you guys are getting 1 million context window?
Oh yeah, we are giving 1 million tokens context window. Yeah, with our API. It is trained with 256,000 tokens data. The context length is up to 256,000. And it can be extrapolated to 1 million tokens. So we just provide the API of 1 million token context.
That is incredible. Incredible also because I've seen how much our folks have an interesting time to put up this model. It's obviously, it supports tool calling and all of these things. The model has been trained on 7.5 trillion tokens. Junyang, you want to talk about the ratio? You guys said 70% code ratio, right?
Yeah, we still need to mix the general data because you cannot just invest all the coding data into it. So we just invest 30% of the general text data from our Qwen 3 pre-training data to merge it together and train the coding. But it is actually based on our Qwen 3 based large language model. So it is not totally trained from scratch. Mm-hmm. So it has been trained with a large amount of text tokens and then use this 7.5 trillion coding merge text tokens for the pre-training. Yeah.
One additional thing that was standing out to me is the RL, the reinforcement learning fine-tuning with the 20,000 parallel environments.
But yeah, it is not a reasoning model because we think that for the first step, we need to train and instruct models. And especially for coding agent tasks, you actually do not need a thinking model. It would be really, really horrible. For example, in a multi-turn environment, if you think and then do the execution, wow, that will cost you a lot of tokens. For the reinforcement learning, because we have a lot of coding tasks for the reinforcement learning, so we need the environment for the training, especially for the coding agent task. For example, if it is a multi-turn reinforcement learning, so you need to interact with the environment and get the environment feedback during your rollout process. So we need to interact with the environment throughout your rollout process. Yeah, this is what we meant.
So you basically have like sandboxed environments for the model to kind of just like see the results, the outputs of the code and kind of train on that?
Yeah, for reinforcement learning, you have a rollout process, and then after your rollout, you get the reward to train the model. For example, if you train traditional coding competition problems, you just need to write the solution and see whether it can pass the test cases. This is more like traditional reinforcement learning, but in the agent RL, so you need to interact with the environment. So, for example, in a multi-turn session, so you need to write some code and then send it to the sandbox to execute the code. Well, maybe it has some errors, and then you get the errors, and then you do the next step for the decision and to write some more codes, and then you interact with the sandbox, with the environment, until you get the final result to see whether what your reward is. This is reinforcement learning to interact with the environment.
And
this is what we are doing.
And this resulted in some very, very impressive benchmarks compared to other models that we just celebrated a couple of weeks ago. So you guys released this like very cool looking dark chart with Qwen Coder, which we also should mention the Qwen Code. A little bit of confusing naming. Qwen Coder is the model, Qwen 3 Coder, and then Qwen Code is the CLI tooling. But let's talk about the model results. We have some impressive results that at some points even beat Claude Sonnet 4, Junyang, like you said. So we see SWE-bench verified with OpenHands, which I really love. Like we should mention again, OpenHands is an open source harness for agentic harness to run multiple things. They've been on top of the SWE-bench verified multiple times, and they always show kind of the state of the art open source models. So it's incredible that you guys released the model plus the harness to go and kind of verify your results on SWE-bench verified. And for 500 turns, you get 69.6 on the SWE-bench verified, which is just incredible to see. Folks, we've seen SWE-bench verified state-of-the-art open source models jump by 10 points from week to week. Right? Before Kimi, we had, I think it was Mistral. I don't even remember it moved so fast. And then we had Kimi with the best open source. And now we have you guys beating like with 69%. Claude Sonnet 4 with the same harness, I'm assuming, gets 70.4. So very, very close to Claude Sonnet 4. I see Aider Polyglot with the absolutely higher score. Junyang, you want to talk about Aider and how that like benchmark is, why is that important? This model gets 61.8 on Aider, higher than anything else in the table, higher than the Kimi, higher than Claude Sonnet 4. Could you talk about Aider and why that like specific benchmark and why is it interesting?
We focus more on SWE-bench and terminal bench. This time we have good performance in terminal bench, so we have more confidence in our Qwen code because it can perform better than our previous models in the terminal setup.
Nistan, go ahead.
Yeah, funny enough, I tested the coding model on medical performance, and it scored as one of the highest open source ones, just as high as DeepSeek V3, which was Is this a sign of things to come with the non-coding one? Because this was pretty surprising to me, considering it's a coding model. And I tested the 235B, and that one got 2% higher. But is this pre-training? Is this something else? You're going to release a generalist at this size later on? Is that the plan? And what's going on with the pre-training of that data? Because it's scoring well in non-coding tasks.
Yeah, actually, when we train, we call it a specialized model. We call it a coder, but internally, we require our builders to build a model that is almost as good as the large language models. You cannot make the performance drop in the large language model. So this is why we still merge general text data in our pre-training, and we also merge general text data in our post-training as well. So you'll find that the performance drop in comparison with like Qwen 3 to 35 billion is not that large. So this will facilitate us merging our coder into our large language model. Maybe later you will find that we have a single large language model, but it is really good at coding, but also very good at general tasks. And we find that this coder has something surprise us, maybe even a little bit better than the general large language model. But its knowledge coverage is generally good. Like we just found that our large language model was not that good in the knowledge about game, but the coder model is even better in game. I don't know why, but it actually happened. So we try to make it good in general language performance.
So I wanna shout out that the community really wants this model. And Junyang, as you showed, and I'm like showing the same kind of tweet from Open Router right now, that 50 billion tokens in the last 2 days on Alibaba Qwen models. I think those are both models together. It's like the usage is quite impressive on Open Router. Open Router traces like which models are getting used and what. I think it helps when you guys provide a 1 million context window, but it's quite incredible how you guys obviously serve this model on API. Have you guys seen a surprising kind of? Were you surprised by the excitement from this model, by the usage for folks, by the demand?
We were actually not that surprised about the demand because we just know that people are expecting our coder model. In my tweets, people are just talking about like Qwen 3 coder, Qwen 3 coder, Qwen 3 coder. When in Bingyuan's tweet, they just asked the Qwen 3 coder every day. I think there are a lot of people expecting it. But there are some problems coming into our APIs because for API that is supporting such a long context, if you check our pricing, you'll find that if your context is longer, it will be more expensive. But sometimes the users cannot take this. They will think that, wow, why the context is so long using your Qwen code? Why it costs so many tokens? It is out of their expectations. So we need to solve the problem, tell them why, and we try to improve our Qwen code to see that how to help them reduce the cost. Yeah, there are a lot of surprising things, but for the increasing, it is actually consistent with our expectation.
All right, folks, we have a time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. LDJ go and then Wolfram, and then we'll let Junyang let us know about another model they released today about translation, and then mindful of his time being very late, we'll let him go and continue. Go ahead, LDJ.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, the benchmark scores showing up for Sonnet 4 in that the chart with Qwen 3 coder, is that reasoning or non-reasoning scores for Sonnet 4? I think it's non-reasoning, we just want to be sure.
Yeah, we just don't think reasoning models are that important for coding specific models because reasoning models can increase the performance in competition problems. It is just like an IOI contester, just like that. It is good for IOI contests, but it might not be that good for coding agents. So we just build a non-reasoning model first. If we have more time and more budget, we can try building a reasoning model, but I think it is not that important as this non-reasoning model. Yeah.
All righty. And then Wolfram, you also had some thoughts as well?
Yeah, I would like to know if you plan to release different sizes, because that was a big strength of Qwen. I think that it was always available in various sizes for various VRAM capacities in systems. So is that also planned, or are you going more towards the huge models?
Are we going to release smaller models? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are updating the big one, are you going to make smaller versions as well available like you used to do?
Our focus is on building the large models. If we build the large models and you achieve the best performance, maybe that's something that people really care. I know small models are good for local developers, but we focus more on increasing the best performance.
Okay, yeah, that seems to be a trend. We have seen it with Meta and others. Just wanted to know.
All righty.
Thank you.
Yam, you want to finish us off?
Yeah, I just want to say what everybody is thinking right now. You guys are on track to outperform the big labs with open source. You are really on track, and we all see it, and it's exciting. You guys are pushing and leading, constantly leading for, I think, 2 years at this point, and it's exciting to see this moment that, I don't know, open weights models are on par with closed frontier labs, and it's amazing to see. And thank you all for your answers. I think I speak on behalf of the entire internet. Thank you all.
Yeah, many thanks to you. That's quite a good appreciation. For these 2 months, we did not release anything, and Qwen models may be a little bit lagging behind the new release models. And this time, we're a little bit like coming back with new models, so we will provide better models.
Let's give a round of applause for you guys and the whole team. Please tell them they always, we are very excited to host you as well as the rest of the Qwen team. We're very excited when the models get released. I was very excited also to like put the Qwen 3 A22B, the new one, and also the Qwen 3 coder on the inference of WNB core wave as well. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Junyang, thank you so much for joining us. I will mention one last thing that we kind of barely didn't mention specifically. The Qwen 3 coder model beats the Kimi K2 that just came out a week ago for the state-of-the-art in SWE-bench verified, while being half the parameters. So Kimi is 1 trillion, this one is 480 billion, half the parameters, and it beats that performance, and it's less active parameters as well. Very impressive. Junyang, thank you so much for joining us. We know it's late over there. We're gonna let you go. Please let us know about any other releases. Folks should definitely give Junyang a follow because he is the guy who always like a sense when the new releases are coming, including today's release of the translation model that we didn't get the chance to chat with yet. Alrighty, folks, this is it for our open source. As you heard directly from the man himself, from the Alibaba Qwen, Junyang Lin, a friend of the pod, and always it's great pleasure to have him on to chat about their models, releases, and get questions from the folks in the audience as well. As this kind of quarter ends, we'll move to this week's boss just a little bit. But now we have another friend of the pod who joined us again, not for the first or second time. We want to say hi to Joseph Nelson, the co-founder CEO of Roboflow. This time you have a small announcement as well, but also you're here to talk about something that happened in the world of, we will say, politics. So Joseph, you reached out to me, which I really appreciate. Folks, if you were mutuals and you're like Joseph, you come to the pod and you want to talk about something and you reach out to me, I'll definitely find a spot for you, especially if it's something as big as this. So Joseph, what is it that you wanted to talk to me about today?
Two things. So the WhiteHouse announced their AI plan, and you and I were going back and forth on Twitter because I was there as they made a lot of the announcements, and I can give you maybe some thought of like what the feeling was of folks that were also there. You said open source is over. In fact, new SOTA model, best in the world, object detection on the edge, RF data release, 3 new model sizes out today. So we released RF data first. It was the first real-time model to beat 60 mean average precision on COCO. So Papers with Code defines real-time as 25 FPS. We released that in March, and people were like, this is cool. We like this. Can we get a smaller one? And so we're like, yeah, let us cook. And so now we're back and we're saying, here's RF Deader Nano, RF Deader Small, and RF Deader Medium, all of which are Pareto optimal for accuracy and speed, and Apache 2.
When Apache 2 is mentioned, we all get very, very excited. Apache 2, RF Data is a model that you guys are trained in-house after you've been using multiple like other open source models. You've been on to talk about RF Data before, and now, so 3 new sizes?
Yeah, 3 new sizes, nano, small, and medium. Large and XL, we still think we can push even further, so probably can stay tuned for more releases from us to not bury the lead at all.
Congrats on the release. Also, I've seen that the way to use some of these models is in the also maintained by you supervision library, and that's been blowing up as well. So shout out to also a friend of ours, Piotr, for keep maintaining this. It got almost to 30K stars. So congrats on the news. It's great to have you both like release something and announce like here on stage with Apache 2 as always. And yeah, folks should definitely check it out. It's definitely the top of the line vision. Moving on to part 2 of why I wanted to chat with you. So for folks who may be not as in the news as kind of like we are, the WhiteHouse, when they joined, they announced like a new AI Tar, David Sachs, the WhiteHouse, basically with him and Sriran Krisham, previously from A16Z, who helps, and some other folks. They have worked really hard since they were not appointed there. They released finally America's AI Action Plan. It's a 25-page strategy doc action plan aimed at securing U.S. dominance in artificial intelligence. As we've seen previously before, like we see open source catching up to frontier labs. We see a lot of frontier labs still U.S.-based, but a lot of open source just week after week, sweeping waves of incredible open source coming out of China. And this is their action plan to kind of like either try to catch up or like figure out what to do about this. Framed as a national priority comparable to the space race and Cold War, the plan sets out 90 policy proposals spanning deregulation, infrastructure, and open source leadership, which we obviously love to hear, open source leadership. Joseph, Generally, thoughts on this? You were there. How did that happen? And like, what's going on? And tell us a little bit about your feelings in the room from this.
Yeah, some context of our connection to this madness. So as you mentioned, Trium from A16Z has been working on the AI plan. And then someone else that's been working on the AI plan is David Sachs, who was at Craft Ventures previously. And Sachs and I have worked together. He was on my board for 3.5 years. And then when he took his position, he had to release himself of all boards. And so what's actually kind of encouraging is, he invested in Roboflow in 2020 before like open source AI was maybe as known as a priority. And so to have someone like that shaping policy is actually pretty encouraging for the open source community. I did the work of reading the 28-page plan and trying to distill down some things like, what does it really mean for us? And I think they're kind of like, there's like 3 things they care about. They want more data centers, they want better models and things proliferated, and they want to have an open ecosystem. The report actually, one point that really stands out to me that's exciting is it calls for an explicit increase of open source and open weight models. And part of the thought is, if American companies are investing more in open source AI, then you sort of get like the reason Facebook open source reacts, where more folks are familiar with that paradigm and way of building and so forth. And so when you have an economy as large as America is like pointing a lot of its energy at an initiative like AI, I think we can expect to get a lot more models a lot more quickly. The other thing is the data center part of it, like the investment that's being put into building more data centers, getting more power generation online, and expediting permitting, I think will help with just the overall AI build out. So people will be able to build, train, and serve models in a bigger way. Maybe to give you some thoughts on the what's in the room thing, that was the first Trump speech that I've ever seen end to end. I'd never seen a Trump speech from start to finish. I'd only ever seen the clips on X and stuff like this that float. And it is an experience. So he'll go on talking with the teleprompter, the things that he's supposed to say, and he just kind of gets locked in on a thing and just kind of riffs for a while. So for example, at one point, he's like, I heard of this guy and his company, NVIDIA, and they said that he has 100% of hardware sales. And I said, oh, we gotta break that thing up. Like, what's going on with that? Someone that has 100%, we gotta break that up. Jensen's in the room, seated at the front. Camera's like kind of panned to him. He's just kind of like stone faced, like sort of smiling, like, where's this kind of gonna go? And then Trump's like, but then I sort of looked at it a bit more and they said, if Jensen were incompetent for 10 years, no one would still catch him. Seems like it'd be too hard to break it up. And I said, on to the next. And I was like, the president of the United States just like openly is like, yeah, there might be a monopoly here. I don't know, but seems strategically important. On to the next I think it's overall like pretty good news. And it's actually pretty encouraging that the world's largest economy is pointing so much of its effort at what is the technology of our lifetimes to build it better and more quickly.
We absolutely should kind of pause for a second here and discuss that, like, this is the government. They're not known for, like, all of these, I don't know what they're called. Like, these folks are not known to adopt Microsoft Word as fast as, and the AI is catching up super quick. For many of them, this is a very, very, very foreign concept. And this is maybe one of the outcomes of announcing that folks like David Sachs, who've been involved in a lot of this, Shriram Krishan definitely from A16Z, a bunch of other folks are driving this policy. It's incredible. And the fact that we're not getting closed, we're scared of AI, let's not move, moratorium, like bullshit that we were against here like before. And instead we're getting EAC type of posts like, hey, let's go and open source and we shouldn't be afraid. It's incredible. It's incredible because they are obviously seeing what's happening from across the world. Open source absolutely wins. People get like drawn to the open source stuff, and the bigger companies are getting pressured as well. OpenAI is getting pressure to do some open source. At some point, very soon, hopefully, we're going to see this from OpenAI as well. We see NVIDIA leading the charge, absolutely. Like, nobody can train models. Some people trying. So it's great to see Jensen just like unannounced show up as well. What did Jensen going to have to say about like this whole thing?
So they had both Lisa, CEO of AMD, and then they had Jensen go right after her. And their visions for the future and how pointed Jensen is of opinionated about physical AI and the future potential is nothing short of like awe-inspiring. AMD's perspective was one of like, hey, maybe we're going to get specialized chips for inference versus training, and versus like even given domains, like maybe biological inference will have its own type of specialization. So that was kind of an interesting point. But I think the power of the administration to bring such a group of people together on relatively short notice, frankly, to discuss and be invested in what I think is a really important initiative is, you said it, like, to have usually you kind of ignore politics because it doesn't apply to you, and it's like, oh my gosh, like the thing that we care about is in the spotlight.
It's in the spotlight, but also it's kind of aligned with how we see the world and how we see the world.
That's right.
on ThursdAI. Like for all this time, we celebrate open source. We still have the claps when you say Apache 2. We know that this improves innovation across everybody and also leads to collaboration. Like many folks use the Chinese model and then fine tune and then get incredible results. Just a few days, I had this tweet of like, why is everybody flexing their data centers? Because like this policy outlines fast tracks permitting for new data centers, cheap fabrication plants, and energy infrastructure, which is very, very much lacking. There's this graph that went viral where Chinese in energy build-outs and how much they will spend on energy like in the upcoming decade, and the US is kind of like lagging behind. And that's absolutely something that's critical for data centers. Like all of these data centers like just guzzling energy. And so I just wanted to show this just a few days before, obviously knowing that this is going to happen. All the three major players just announced like incredible, huge more plans to talk about and expand their data centers. Qwen-mas said 230K GPUs, including 30,000 GB200s are operational in single cluster. At Colossus 2, which is the next one, the first batch of 550,000 GB200s, also for training, start going online in a few weeks. 550,000 GB200s. It's just like mind-boggling how much like energy they will need for this. Just like within a span of like a day or less than a day, Zuckerberg said Meta will build out the data center the size of Manhattan in latest AI push. Elon talks numbers. Zach talks like scale in just like the physical world. But just like it puts in context for people. Manhattan, they've been to Manhattan. They took the subway from one end to another end. They see like just just Central Park is huge, but the whole of Manhattan, that's the type of data centers that they're going to build. And also Sam Altman also said, we have signed a deal for an additional 4.5 gigawatts of capacity with Oracle as part of Stargate. Easy to throw numbers, but this is a gigantic infrastructure project. And they show a photo from Abilene, Texas of this incredible build out. And I'm assuming that some of the recommendations in this AI action plan that removes regulation and fast tracking approval for data centers is kind of connected to these folks are just like everybody flexing their giga centers, and just incredible to see how much the scale alongs will continue.
I think something else this is really good for is company creation, because there's so many parts of the plan that call for things that aren't solved yet. For example, better eval systems or acceleration within DoD or acceleration within government use. It's kind of like exactly where there's going to be tens of billions of dollars flowing for these products, for these needs. It's almost a request for startups in some ways, in portions of the document. And so I think that's also encouraging, like money where your mouth is to try to build new things.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think that we should celebrate that this is the position the administration takes, because this is very aligned with how we see the world and against closed source and showing open source like in highlight. Folks on the stage, any comments as well? Not all of us here Americans. There's some Canadians, some Germans, some Israeli folks. How folks outside of the US see this? Wolfram, maybe you want to take this one, given that you're in the EU and the EU is definitely not launching AI plans like this.
I think we are not in the race. But if two parties are racing for something and it's open source, then everybody profits. And I think that is very important, because AI has a huge impact, not just on any country, but the whole world. And there are so many people who outside of the loop and can't even use it. And we just have to look at the conflict areas where the people are suffering. So I do hope that in the end, AI will help us all to elevate humanity to another level where it's not just different countries trying to stay ahead.
Who else wants to take a stab at this? Folks, feel free to unmute and give us some comments before we move on to the next point on our agenda.
Yeah, you mentioned about smaller startups. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because it sounds like this is opening up a whole ecosystem of niches that can be filled in. And it's like in biology books, there's the whole tree and the bird is there and here, and it's like the whole empty tree just opened up. Can you go a bit further into that? Is what they'll enable?
Absolutely. There's a couple of places that they call out making active investment and requesting for open product needs. So for example, on the active investment side, in the US, there's pretty robust financial infrastructure to fund small businesses, to fund science and research, to fund and provide preferential financing for build-outs. There's a portion that's dedicated that says explicitly the DoD, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, National Science Foundation, and the Small Business Administration through a vehicle called a SIBR which is like a small business investment, I think, research grant, should invest and put loans into frontier AI capabilities. And then there's places where it outlines the type of capabilities they want, which are like manufacturing, model evaluation, data center build outs, use of models inside government to make government more efficient, use of models inside defense for national interest. Maybe there's AI companies currently that have written government off that now are like, oh, great, like here's a new market for us to invest in, which I think could be good. So I think there's a lot of places where the government's maybe not the best picker, but if the right sort of people find and discover the grant, there could be some pretty awesome new companies that get built.
Alrighty. So generally, very, very happy with the direction. We'll see how much this improves. Some other things that we didn't mention, tightening of export controls to make sure that this actually happens with some location tracking. Definitely open source and data sets were highlighted there, and we're very, very, very happy. Joseph, thank you so much for joining, for sharing your experience from in the room with us, but also your thoughts about this whole thing. Also, congrats on the start of models. Folks definitely should go and check out Roboflow models, DF, Detter, etc. As we are moving forward, we do want to get to the point of this week's buzz, where we're going to talk to you about Qwen models. So stay tuned with us. And afterwards, we're going to tell you about the new text-to-speech bomb and a few coding tools as well. Hopefully, we'll get to some models as well. Joseph, thank you so much. And folks, we're moving towards this week's buzz. Welcome to this week's buzz for Thursday, July 24th. And this week's buzz is the corner, of course, where I talk about what happened in the world of weights and biases from CoreWeave. And this week, some very, very exciting things has happened. As I told you last week, as we announced a little bit before, maybe a month ago, we're no longer GPU poor. We're in the inference game right now because CoreWeave has joined forces. And now we have this product called WNB Inference. We are the brand new kid on the block in the inference services. The reason why we're stepping in is because we feel we can give you a comprehensive solution, from tracing your LLM models to evaluating them to also inference them. Of course, WNB models itself is the tool that people use to train these models. So you can go basically from metal to inference in one holistic platform. As we build out this platform, we're very happy for folks to enjoy our very cutthroat prices. And this week, I specifically am now part of the model release team. I'm very happy that we've identified super quick, and we didn't have any before knowledge from Junyang, even though he's a friend. We identified super quick that the Qwen models are going to be a big hit. And so we worked really hard to do day one release of the new models on the WNB Weights Inference platform. So Qwen 3, 822B, 2507, and the Qwen 3 Coder 480 billion parameter A35B are both available on our platform. I'm very, very happy to say that as of today, this morning, we also fully support tool use in these models as well. And we have collaborated yet again with some of our co-hosts here to test it out and tell you guys about the model itself, but also the inference service. Nisten, I believe that you have something for us. You've been playing with the model, but also you've been playing with the inference service.
Yeah, I'm going to brag about it. I was the first to get it working in Qwen with the weights and bias config. So I was pretty happy that nobody else was using it while I was using it, because it was just ripping, dude. I do use Grok inference a lot, and that one is faster on smaller things. But when you go to larger contexts, and with Qwen, you can just set the context to 261. Okay, so it's 256, 261K. That's what the doubling adds up to. And it just rips the longer context, because I don't know what GPUs you guys have, but it actually performs a little bit better than Grok if there's nobody else using it. It was going through my app. I actually want to do something from the audience now. So here I'm just running, I use Arch, by the way. So I am just, so the way I configured it was you just download Qwen. So you can use Qwen with the, so Qwen, you can just go and download it, and you just go, I think it's Qwen.bot, Qwen.bot, I believe. And here I just started a random React app. And to configure it, the other cool thing that most people don't realize is that you can configure Qwen with your current Claude code that you have, or you can just use any VLLM compatible API. So if you have a local one, you can just put your local host here and just use it. And the only thing about weights and biases is that it needed custom headers. So Lobato Llama is mine and Austin's project from a while ago. And then you can also set, so I've set the context to 128 just to save up a bit on tokens, but you can set it up higher. And I just set up a plain, very plain React app with Bun. And I just want some suggestions from you guys. This is completely live. This is unplanned. What should we make?
Maybe a Tetris game?
Okay. Okay, make me a Tetris game for ThursdAI with the to-do list in it. Okay, there we go. We're just going to fire it up. And I've zoomed in here. I have no idea how well it's going to work. It just flies. I've zoomed in a bit here for the audience. I made a mistake there. And yeah, so it's going to make the Tetris game. It goes too fast for me to even show it on this screen. But yeah, it just rips. This is Qwen 480B. On
FP16, running on H200s. And listen, I will say the thing that you mentioned, we've ran into this issue with multiple folks who've tried out Qwen3 Coder and some other models. We currently require a specific header called project. We heard you, Wolfram, we heard you as well. We are working on removing this requirement so that you be able to completely use this inference service everywhere that you use OpenAI models, including OpenWebUI and including Klein obviously supports this, but like Qwen Coder, Cloud Coder, like all these tools will be able to very simply connect and get some inference on there. So you have Klein just like absolutely ripping through context. I believe that like Klein uses a lot of context for many of this, right?
Yeah, so Klein is pretty context heavy. So it will be pretty slow if you use your current cloud code while they still allow it. At the moment, it's just making the app right now, and we're going to see if it's going to build out here. It might take a little bit because it's just vibe coding the whole Tetris app with the to-do list, but I basically wanted to show that it changes the workflow a little bit when it works fast. And so people have noticed this with the Grok with the Q as well, that, yeah, it's not really the standard one where you just sit there and wait. This thing just goes, and I think it goes a bit faster sometimes that my computer struggles to stream it. We'll see if it makes a to-do list Tetris by the end of this stream. But again, we haven't tested this before. It had some issues before the start of the stream.
Yeah, ThursdAI is not usually the place for demos. Usually it's a very structured way, but I was like, let's go. And listen, I think it's very helpful. Thank you so much for showing folks how to set up. Client's absolutely killer. And we will see if this builds up by the end. But I do want to say, you said it's compared to Cloud.
Oh, it built it. It built it.
Oh,
it built
let's
it.
go.
Yeah, let's go.
What?
Yeah, it has, dude, it built a Tetris game with the to-do
list.
yeah, and it's building it. Okay, it's still going. Yeah, guys, it rips. Like, we did not plan this demo. No. I mean, I was gonna just show it working. That was the only plan. But
I think you have a comment.
Brother, this is amazing.
I'm just gonna say it. Make it blue.
Make it blue. While it makes it blue, let me take you off from stage just for just a second and add this. Folks, I just want to say, like, this is definitely, like, we just celebrated this. This is a model that is Claude Sonnet compared to. However, right now, obviously, you can use it directly, but also if you use it to us, this is significantly cheaper than Claude Sonnet 4, like significantly cheaper. We're offering this at like slash prices of like $1 for 1 million tokens input and 1.5 per million tokens output. Junyang was saying that like the bigger context you use, like the more you kind of pay. We still don't yet have this kind of like sliding scale, so you get to benefit. And if you want to get maybe a little bit of inference as well, all you need to do is go to our X on weights and biases, find the tweet of the announcement, the new Alibaba Qwen model drop. We're probably gonna like pin this tweet as well. And all you need to do is scroll down and see how you can comment. We had this thing that if you comment to the first tweet with coding capybara, we'll pick like 20 or 30 of you to give you $20 in WNB credits for this inference service that's OpenAI compatible that you can run hopefully soon by end of today, maybe tomorrow with Cloud Code, with Klein. It already works like Nissen showed you. And it's absolutely super fast. You guys definitely should check it out and give us feedback. So reply to the first tweet, find the tweet on weights and biases Twitter, reply with Coding Capybara, and I'll personally make sure. If you had ThursdAI in there, if you say Coding Capybara Thursday, I will look at those first, I promise you. So we'll definitely give you some inference responses there as well. We have some folks asking us multiple things like, hey, when is this on Open Router? When is this on Hugging Face Inference Provider? We're working on all of those, folks, so stay tuned. Again, as I will say, Nista, as I put you back on the stream to show the results, I will say this one thing. We're a baby inference service. We just like the CoreWeave acquisition. You guys were here for this. Like it happened, what, 3.5-ish months ago, and then the folks like came in and super quick built an inference service from almost like from scratch, including everything. So we're still kind of in experimental phase. We would love to hear feedback from you as well. We also, because we are monitoring and tracing, we will have an endpoint of you, also OpenAI compatible, that if you put that endpoint instead of this one, you'll get tracing, transparent auto tracing for you, right? So that's, imagine how cool is this. You will be able to run this everywhere, and then we'll do auto tracing in Weave for you. You don't have to set up anything. You don't have to work on anything. We'll store all the tokens and prompts for you if you want to. So that's going to be super cool. Let's finish off on let's see where the demo is right now. We're probably going to wait until, it's always, the demos are like in the middle of a build, but let's see our blue Tetris. Let's go. No, not this one. Listen, you muted, but we want to see kind of.
Oh yeah, it did make it blue.
All right, listen, thank you so much for this demo, folks. As you saw, WB Inference with the best in the world models on day one support, and we will try to maintain these positions as well with the new upcoming models. Obviously, we'll tell you all about them here, not only about the inference.
That demo was crazy on a whole new level. I think it needs explanation. It's also pushing it into Qwen, an open source model that is powerful enough to even do this. With 1 million context, Claude Code does not support 1 million context, not just the model itself. The infrastructure doesn't support it. I mean, this is a crazy demo on a whole different level. If I told you 2 weeks ago, you could do this with an open weight model, that's amazing. Seriously, that's a sick demo. I wasn't ready for this to go this well. I mean, wow.
Neither, dude. I was ready to cancel it right before the show. I actually told Alex, let's do it next week, guys.
We go live. I will mention as well.
So the open source model, but also open source VS Code. So I'm using VS Codium, open source extension for VS Code. The whole stack is completely open. There is no telemetry being sent to freaking Microsoft. You can actually do the whole thing. You can have the cake. It's kind of a big cake, but you can have it. It's, yeah.
Alrighty. So this was a very extended kick-ass demo of Qwen. Shout out to Qwen for their extreme support. Folks, you can use Qwen Coder in multiple other places as well. Wolfram is now going viral with his tutorial of how to use Qwen Coder with Cloud Code specifically. It's very interesting. You can now use Cloud Code with Qwen Coder inside Qwen. It's like there's a whole stack now that builds up as very interesting. We move on because we have like around 15 minutes and we have a bunch of stuff to cover. But as I said before, if you want some credits on their inference service, please comment on our main thread. I also put a link down below of how to actually use this. Very simple. It's OpenAI compatible. There is the project thing that you have to add the header, and hopefully by end of this week we'll get rid of that, so that it's going to be fully compatible and work everywhere OpenAI works, including Open Web UI and Cloud Code and like all of these places as well. Folks, I think it's time to mention that we're going to move a bit away from tools, although there's one more tool that I wanted to talk about. What we just showed is Qwen 3 Coder, the model being run in Qwen, and we can run this in other places. The folks at Alibaba also released Qwen Code, which is a clone of Gemini Code, which is kind of like a similar thing, like a CLI tool for their Qwen models as well. You'd be able to use it with WB Inference. You'd be able to use this with the Qwen Inference directly as well. That's a CLI, very standard. If you want, you can use that as well. But I think it's more important that we go and talk about these models winning International Math Olympiad. So, as every year, this year as well, there's a consortium of folks who build the International Math Olympiad, and a lot of school kids from around the world, not only school kids, are going and doing competition of like very complex math. Very similar to the eval benchmarks that we talk about, AIME 2024, AIME 2025. This is an actual Olympiad where people do compete with each other. And this year, they have allowed AI models also to participate and to get to a gold medal. Now, it's very interesting there. There's gold medal has like qualifications based on how many things do you solve, how many questions. I think there's like 6 questions in total. And if you would like answer 5 of them correctly, you get qualified for gold medal. It's not like people can share gold medals. Both can be on the gold medal, podium if they achieve this result. And so we saw that both OpenAI and Google DeepMind submitted custom models, specific reasoning custom models that don't use tools. They did different solution solving, but both got to IMO Gold, which is incredible. Yam, would love to hear from you because you got very excited about this. What got you excited about this, about the solutions, and generally how, while you come up and unmute, I'll show the kind of the betting markets. We're not expecting this to happen with a betting market. Will AI win gold medal International Math Olympiad 2025? And you can see it was like at around 20% betting up until it just happened and like it went live. Yam, go ahead.
I think the betting market didn't bet that hard to this direction simply because it's a very hard problem that is known to be worked on for years. It's not some obscure problem that no one ever tried. It's a problem where the best of the best had been working on, and we heard no progress until one day we heard a lot of progress. That's how it works with AI. The thing about this is that you need to generalize, but in a way that intuitively feels, you can say, feels or even on score very hard. The generalization that you need to do from math proofs that you've already seen, even with RL, into proving things and theorems that are extremely hard. There is a reason it's a world-class competition every year. The theorems that you need to prove are new each year. It's not like you can cheat this, at least not easily.
No.
And it's absolutely incredible to see this not only happen in, within, I want to say within our lifetime, but it's not only that it happened this week from 2 different players at the same week. I mean, that's crazy on a whole new level.
Yep.
And it's amazing to see. Absolutely. And I was shocked, seriously. I mean, I've seen a lot. I'm not sure if I'm surprised anymore. Like, if you can really surprise me with dropping something in AI, that is crazy. But I was shocked. Seriously, I didn't expect this, especially not from both of them at the same time.
Both of them simultaneously. Not only this, ByteDance takes silver with an open source package called Seed Prover with their model, which is also quite crazy. So like open source also is catching up. From now DeepMind, and previously he worked in other places. I think was he at Reka?
Oh yeah, and he was at Google before. Yeah,
and then he came
absolutely.
back to Google recently. He says our IMO Gold, which he worked on, shout out Yute, is not just an experimental reasoning in quotes. It's way more general purpose than anybody would have expected. The general deep think model is going to be shipped, so stay tuned. The model, the IMO Gold, is a general model, and it's going to get shipped. They couldn't get to anywhere this model before. OpenAI's Boris Power said that for OpenAI, for this IMO competition, the model got no tool use, no calculators, no internet access, no formal proof software like Lean and otherwise, no algebra packages, same time limits as humans, the same input to the question as for students. So no rewriting the model for suitable format for the model, and only one submission. So basically these models are competing at like a gold level, medalist level. And also I want to highlight this guy who posted like a Dave White, a research advisor and former competitive mathematician. He said that like this definitely gut punched him. The robots can now outperform humans on elite level math challenges, typically viewed as the pinnacle of high school problem solving skill. It's very impressive, the results from both these companies, and definitely should be shouted out. This is a breakthrough moment, folks. While we wait for AGI, whatever, the company's already like focused on ASI, and these like generalist models, not specifically trained for these models, are focused on, are solving like our best of the best, like math Olympiad. This is Olympiads. This is the Olympics for math people. This is like the hardest ever math problems, and these models are getting gold faster than humans. Wolfram.
Just a year or 2 ago, I was telling people how to use AI and telling them not to use them for anything that has to do with math, because these are text generators, not calculators or stuff like that. And look how things have changed again.
Yeah. The very basic advice that we had, like, hey, these models are text predictors, so don't expect them to do like math multiplication. And now models just general reasoning models. General reasoning, I think, is the word here. Not fine-tuned, not like trained for only this. General reasoning that we'll see in other places are solving math at Olympiad level. I want to mention that like even Sam Altman is now getting a little bit scared of the things that he generated. I don't know if you guys saw this. Sam Altman went on Theo Von podcast and he talked about GPT-5. GPT-5 is already being trained and tested apparently, and Sam Altman himself is using it for coding and email summarization, and Sam Altman had a moment of like reflection of how well GPT-5 did some stuff for him. So Sam Altman definitely, LDJ, go ahead if it's relevant to this. Sam Altman definitely mentioned that both GPT-5 is coming and also the GPT-5 is solving incredible things for coding and some email tasks that he had. LDJ?
Yeah, there is a Verge article that just released like in the past hour or so, leaking some of the plans and details of what it seems the open source release and GPT-5 release are for. According to the Verge, it looks like GPT-5 mini and a nano and then GPT-5 regular are planned. The mini and regular plan to be in ChatGPT and API, while nano only being available in API. And they say it's planned for early August, with the open source release coming before GPT-5, maybe as soon as next week. So a lot of exciting things there. And I do have a quote actually from the Theo Von podcast that I'll try and find here. But yeah, I guess I just found it. Yeah. So here's the exact quote that Sam said in the Theo Von podcast. Quote, "This morning I got emailed a question I didn't understand and I put it in GPT-5 and answered it perfectly. I really sat back in my chair and I was just like, oh man, here it is, this moment. I got it over it quickly and I was like busy on to the next thing, but it was what we're talking about. I felt useless relative to the AI in this thing that I felt like I should be able to do. And I couldn't, and it was just really hard, but the AI just did it like that. It was a weird feeling."
This is the CEO, co-founder of OpenAI, who builds these models. Feels useless in comparison with these models. That's very interesting. All right, folks. We talked about big companies and APIs, I think, at length. The only other thing that I did want to mention super quick, Google had their earnings call, and Google did a few things. First of all, they launched Gemini Flash Lite. You guys remember this model that we talked about? It's finally in GA. It's doing great. You could go and check it out. And also, Google on the earnings call, Sundar Pichai, here's the quote. "The growth in usage has been incredible. At I.O. in May, which we've covered, I went to I.O., we announced that we processed 480 trillion monthly tokens across our services. Since then, we have doubled that number. Now processing over 980 trillion tokens.
A quadrillion, yeah.
Quadrillion.
So quintillion, yeah.
Google is like 20 trillions of tokens, which is probably going to happen while we talk, away from a quadrillion tokens, I think a month, across their AI services, which is just absolutely insane.
But quads now, holy crap.
Quads,
new
yes.
terms, yeah. They're doing a quad a month.
415 million monthly active, 415 million active monthly users, and daily requests grew 50% from Q1 in 2025. AI is absolutely eating the world. Jan, go ahead.
Oh yeah, look, there is no denying that Google scale is, well, Google scale. But my question is, do we have comparable numbers from OpenAI, for example? Because it's interesting to talk about how many tokens OpenAI process, because, you know, it can be many things. OpenAI, as of this moment, everyone knows that OpenAI is leading in terms of number of users. So it's very interesting to see any information at all that we might compare. But yeah, I mean, crazy.
I mean, they turned on AI mode to all of India pretty much, and that immediately probably jumped up the number of people who use this monthly.
I didn't think about this. They turned AI mode, so they use AI for you even if you don't ask it specifically. Yeah, I mean, they might be processing the most. I mean, I didn't think about this, but yeah, I mean, they might be processing.
So AI overviews just kind of work for you, and so when they turn it on, like everybody just who uses Google, so that's immediate, and then AI mode you have to click in. One small comment and we move on, because I do want to talk about ChatGPT agent super quick, and then also the TTS we have pretty much running out of time.
Yeah, sure. So what Jan was saying, OpenAI did actually just recently in the past couple of days state that they are now processing over 2.5 billion queries per day. Not tokens, just queries. So if we assume like at least 100 tokens of output per query, then that's over 250 billion tokens they're doing per day.
Yep, that's a lot. Alrighty, folks, let's move on super quick and we'll end on the ChatGPT agent thing. We have a new winner in the audio category. Wolfram, I don't know if you can maybe help us play a sample from the Higgs Audio V2 like you previously did. If you share your screen, that'd be helpful because it's a little bit of a setup here. But basically, Higgs Audio V2 from BosoneAI, while Wolfram pulls it up if you can, is open unified TTS model with voice cloning, and it beats GPT-4o Mini and even 11 Labs even. It's trained on 10 million hours on speech and music and events on top of Llama 3.2, so it's an intelligent model, and it almost works real time and on edge. I'm reading a tweet from Vibov, our friend from Hugging Face. It beats GPT-4o and 11 Labs in prosody and emotion multi-speaker dialogue, and it has zero-shot voice cloning. So we can take a look. Wolfram, I can send you the exact tweet if you want to pull this up. And as always, we get improvements across the board. This is why we love in ThursdAI to cover everything in chunks. So we're going to take a look and see. It's really something. The improvements in voices is really, really something. And it's available with a zero GPU demo as well. Alrighty, Wolfram. Cannot hear. I think you need to share the tab if you can and not the whole window. The only way.
Wait, I had it muted here. And I have to close the...
Let me try. Apologies, folks. Sharing with audio is difficult, but I think we should be able to do this. Let me see. Folks, let me know if you can hear us.
You spent our weekends tuning a model instead of seeing my parents.
But that run was really important. That is not true. I just needed it to converge.
You promised things would get better after your PhD.
Babe, I swear, just give me a little more time. Everything will change after AGI.
All right, this is one example. Honestly, it sounds good. I've heard better. But for open source, it sounds really good. I think the real-timeness of this is worth noting and calling out. So shout out to Higgs. Also calling it Boson is really, really funny. All right, folks, let's end on something very, very incredible. I actually want to show you. And yeah, meanwhile, we both got access to ChatGPT Agent. We actually streamed the ChatGPT Agent stream last week on ThursdAI, but then we didn't have access. ChatGPT Agent combination of the OpenAI operator that can operate the web browser and OpenAI Deep Research that can do deeper tasks and is meaningful multi-turn, long horizon context agent. And they kind of shoved them all together and they got to a point where they have agents for OpenAI. And now I think they rolled it out to plus tier as well. Yam, how's your experience with agent? What did you do? What did you try to do?
It's crazy. You think that O3 is crazy for surfing the internet and going out and finding information for you. But this is on a whole different level. First, because you can see, and second, because it has access to, because it's a real browser and not just a search. And by the way, you need to insist, you need to ask specifically, use the real browser for many things because it can choose what it wants. I saw it all of a sudden starting to watch YouTube videos. And
what? Really?
I just, for the first time I saw the button, it was on my mobile phone and I just thought, okay, maybe I'll ask it, what are the new, compare Claude Code to Gemini CLI to Codex CLI, because for a couple of weeks I didn't try them and I thought, okay, maybe I could use a comparison. Let's see what it comes up with. And it all of a sudden starts to go on YouTube, watch videos of people comparing them and go on Reddit and do very sophisticated things, checking the comments and so on. And it was just, first it was surprising, I didn't expect it. But it was absolutely incredible. I saw it on, you see the browser with the arrow moving on mobile, on the app. It's not just on the computer, like on your phone. And obviously you can go on the computer and check because, it's the same, and OpenAI's app are amazing. But man, I didn't expect that. What did you do with this? I mean, that's incredible.
I've tried multiple things. First of all, I tried to get my girlfriend flowers, with the agent. It did almost succeed. It didn't have my checkout info, but it chose the right flowers within the budget, and then like it got to the right point. It was incredible. Then I tried to book tickets. I'm going on vacation actually after next week, so hopefully I'll be here for the GPT-5 in the open source. But if not, I know that folks can carry on without me. But I tried to like do some vacation stuff. I needed the insurance policy, for example, so I asked it to go and find out the right insurance policy for 3 people, and it did fill out all the stuff. It did ask me like, hey, what are the names, who are you traveling with, etc. But like it got to a point where like it's like, hey Alex, just input your billing, and everything was good. And it actually, folks, I can say, even though it failed on the first one, and I did report this bug to OpenAI, it just failed and shut the browser down. It did find me the right policy, filled out the things. All I needed to do is add my billing info and credit card, and then I got the policy. I did verify this myself. And then my hardest test is this one. This is my agentic test since the beginning. I have a very specific way that I prepare for ThursdAI. I go to a bunch of tweets and I go to bookmarks and I open all up and all summarize and like I do a bunch of stuff. And I did a comparison stream yesterday where I ran this agentic task on ChatGPT kind of agent and Comment Browser, the agentic browser for Perplexity that we just told you about before, that also has access to my kind of, login state. And both of them did this a little bit better. Comment did this a little bit faster, but worse. And both of them needed interaction. Most of them forgot a few things. So they didn't do it perfectly. I would give it like a C- to Comment and maybe a C here to the ChatGPT agent. But this is a difficult task, multiple variables. It has to keep a bunch of states. It has to put it in like a thing. So it definitely is a more complex task than like, hey, go somewhere and fill out this form for me. The go somewhere, fill out this form for me works incredible. I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where I'm like feel confident enough to give it a credit card. If you guys remember, the older generation went on the internet and were scared shitless of sharing their credit cards, and now all we do is buy online, right? So like this also changes. I'm expecting that we'll give agents some power of attorney, whatever, some budget, and we'll be able to do stuff for us. If ChatGPT agent had access to my 1Password, and my 1Password has my both logins and credit cards, but also I don't want it to get access to go crazy. And so you can see, for folks who are watching this on screen, you can literally see visually what it does. It has like a cursor. The cursor has like a little thinking bubble, so it shows you what it thinks while it happens. It still needs a lot of intervention for multiple things. Research stuff maybe less, but like it still needs a lot of intervention for the more difficult stuff. Multiple points during this thing, the ChatGPT kind of gave up and told me, hey, Alex, my browsing environment just shut out, but here's how to do this, and gave me instructions on how to do the task that I asked it to do, which, man, I know how to do this. This is why I asked you. Like, I don't need instructions on how to do this. This is literally why I need an agent to do things for me. So this was kind of funny. But this has been my experience. I am absolutely sure that this is where things are going to go. It's more and more easy now that it's baked into the ChatGPT app to just like launch it, send something, and go off, and it's on your browser. Definitely great experience. Wolfram?
I'm happy that I got it even here in Europe. And I love the presentation, how they did it. I have been using Claude Computer Use before, and this is pretty much a more advanced version of this, but the presentation, how they implemented it in the small screen, it looks amazing. It shows important information. That is very well done. Whoever came up with that concept, that's brilliant. Yep. And the rate limit for Plus users is just 40 queries per month. That is a bit hard now. I experiment a bit, but I don't want to use it up all because I don't know if I will need it later. So I will just wait, and when the month rolls over, maybe then I will do a power session or something. So yeah, but it's amazing, cool stuff.
It is a very good tool, folks. It's a very good tool. They shipped like a SOTA tool just for this. I heard rumors that some folks at Google maybe ship something as well. We'll see. Folks, with that said, I think we're at the end.
Shout out to Zenova for getting Volkstral, the Mistral voice model, to work on web GPU. So if you have a very good computer now, you can just run that thing straight on your browser. You don't need to install anything. That's insane to me. Okay, so shout out to at Zenova.com, Josh from Weights and Biases, also author of the Transformers.js library, because he got that working pretty
nice doing him recently. LDJ?
Yeah, so I was going to mention, since we were just talking about ChatGPT agent, there is an OpenAI thing we haven't talked about, which is there's a new anonymous chatbot model on LM Arena that calls itself O3 Alpha. And apparently it's like people are saying it's like the best front end coding model they've ever tried. People are posting examples on Twitter.
Wait, hold up. Nista, did you make the Tetris Go 3D?
Yeah, dude,
What?
dude, I made 3D chess, bro. It's
3D
still
Tetris.
ripping. It is still ripping. But
Tetris, let's
hang
go.
on, hang on. Okay, you guys saw that, right? Hang on, let's just
Yes.
start. Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. Sorry, I'm very excited. I mean, it tried to also make, I think it misunderstood from my text-to-speech from my local whisper, my instructions. But yeah, it also made the to-do list in 3D. So it's still going. But yeah, guys, it literally made 3D chess.
All right, Nista,
right
I'm
now.
getting a request for you to host this thing somewhere so the ThursdAI folks who are getting the newsletter who won't be able to just see this will be able to play around with this. But with this, folks, I think we must end because like we're way past 2 hours. LDJ, one last comment?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to pull up the specific front-end coding examples of people showed like images and videos and the links I just put in StreamYard right now.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I can confirm, totally confirm that this model is different. I mean, obviously it's called O3 something, so it's a hint. But yeah, I absolutely confirm. I played with it quite a while, and it's crazy.
Link I put, it might even, I think it's more impressive than the Rubik's Cube.
All right, let's do this, and then hopefully this is the open source one.
One thing about the agents, just I want to say, close up with this is the worst that there are going to be. This is the worst. This is absolutely the worst that agents are going to be. So if at the moment they don't do something well, but kind of doing it or doing it slow, and you don't want to trust them with your credit card, well, I think next year you will.
Alrighty, folks, this is it. This is the ThursdAI for July 2024. We didn't get to the papers, which are very incredible, where some models teach other models their preferences based just like through unrelated data. We didn't get to the point where Apple is showing a thing where you can speed up inference by 5x for LLMs with a few lines of code. The crazy stuff is happening. But folks, this has been ThursdAI for this week. We were very, very happy to not only tell you about the Qwen 3 updated models and tell you about the Qwen Coder models. We're also very happy to host Junyang Lin, a friend of ours from the Qwen team, to talk about the models and kind of the stuff and the choices they did. We also were very happy to host Joseph Nelson, our friend of the pod, who was in Washington to see the White House announce the AI action plan that's very strongly pro open source and generally wants to move things forward. Very positive AI action plan. And not only can I just tell you about this, we actually had a live demo of Nistan like trying it out and then building some crazy things on the fly with these models here right on stage here. So you definitely want to check this out. Feel free to comment on the actual tweet of ours, Coding Capybara. Shout out to the previous mascot of Alibaba that we all remember and love. And also Nistan will hopefully put up this demo somewhere that you guys can play with this. So we'll be able to add this to the show notes. If you missed any part of the show, as always, ThursdAI is a show that is not only live streamed, but then edited down and boiled down to a form of a newsletter. We add all the links we talked about and even the stuff that we don't get to talk about but happened during the show. We add to the newsletter. We had more than 10,000 of you join our live stream, which is incredible. And we will be here next week. And hopefully next week we'll get some of those releases as well. So folks, thank you so much for joining. This has been ThursdAI. It's always a pleasure to host this with my co-host Wolf from Raven Wolf, Nistan Tahira, Jan Peleg, and LDJ. And we'll be here next week. Bye-bye for now. Thank you so much all for joining. Bye-bye.